Blinding white light, it stabbed at Sid's eyes, piercing through his eyelids like shards of glass.
His head throbbed, a relentless drumbeat pounding against his skull. Groaning, he tried to burrow deeper into the pillow, seeking refuge from the onslaught of sensory overload. But the pillow, strangely stiff and unyielding, offered no comfort. It smelled vaguely of kebabs?
He cracked open an eye, wincing at the brightness of the room.
Everything swam into view, blurry and distorted. A strange bedroom, unfamiliar and disorienting. Where the bloody hell was he?
His gaze drifted downwards, landing on a sight that made his stomach lurch.
His right foot, protruding from beneath the duvet, was encased in what could only be described as a kebab massacre. The remnants of a once glorious late-night feast were smeared across his toes, a sticky, greasy mess of shredded lettuce, diced onions, and some unidentifiable, meat-like substance.
He stared at it, a mixture of disgust and morbid fascination battling within him.
How in God's name did a kebab end up on my foot? Had I sleepwalked to the nearest takeaway and decided to use my foot as a plate? The thought was absurd, even for me.
He gingerly extricated his foot from the kebab carnage, peeling away the clingy layers of food with a grimace.
The stench hit me full force, a potent aroma of garlic, chili sauce, and stale beer. I gagged, feeling the bile rise in my throat again. I need to get out of this bed, out of this room, before I throw up all over the kebab-stained sheets.
He found the door, a heavy wooden thing that creaked ominously as he pushed it open.
The hallway beyond was dim, lit by a single flickering fluorescent bulb. The air hung heavy with the smell of stale cigarette smoke and something else, something sweet and sickly. Perfume?
He took a tentative step forward, his head throbbing in protest.
I need to find the bathroom, and quickly. The kebab is staging a rebellion in my stomach, threatening to erupt in a geyser of vomit.
He stumbled down the hallway, past closed doors and muffled sounds.
Music, faint and tinny, seeped from beneath one of the doors. I recognized the tune, a cheesy pop song I'd heard blaring from Gaz's beat-up Ford Fiesta the night before.
The remnants of the night before, hazy and disjointed, were starting to coalesce in his mind.
Shots, dancing, a kebab shop, a girl, a name, something beginning with M. I couldn't quite grasp it, the memory slipping through my fingers like sand.
He reached the bathroom, flinging the door open and collapsing onto the toilet.
I dry-heaved, my stomach churning. Nothing came up but a mouthful of bitter bile. I slumped against the wall, my head spinning. I need to get out of here, escape this strange house and the echoes of my forgotten feast. But first, I need to find my clothes. I have a feeling I wouldn't be welcomed back wearing nothing but a kebab-encrusted foot.
He emerged from the bathroom, feeling slightly more human but no less confused.
I scanned the hallway, searching for any sign of my clothes, my phone, my sanity. Nothing. I'm stranded in a strange house, wearing nothing but my boxers and a lingering sense of dread.
He cautiously approached the room he'd woken up in, pushing the door open with a hesitant hand.
This was it. The scene of the crime. The bed was unmade, the sheets tangled and askew. The remnants of the kebab lay scattered on the floor, a testament to my drunken escapades.
He cringed, remembering the sticky sensation of shredded lettuce and chili sauce between his toes.
I scanned the room, my eyes searching for any clue as to the identity of my host. A framed photograph on the bedside table caught my eye. A woman, young and pretty, with bright red hair and a mischievous grin.
He picked up the photo, studying her face.
The name came to me then, a whisper in the back of my mind. Mel. That was her name. Mel with the fiery hair and the laugh that could make you forget your own name. I vaguely remembered meeting her at the pub, buying her a drink, sharing a laugh. Then, a blank space. Nothing. I couldn't remember anything after that, just a hazy blur of noise and movement. Had I slept with her? The thought sent a shiver of apprehension down my spine. I didn't even know this woman, and here I was, standing in her bedroom, wearing nothing but my boxers and a hangover of epic proportions.
He needed to get out of there, and fast. He felt like a character in a bad sitcom, caught in a compromising situation with no recollection of the events leading up to it.
He scanned the room again, desperately searching for his clothes. He spotted his jeans crumpled in a heap on the floor, a crumpled 20-pound note peeking out of the back pocket. Thank God for small mercies.
He pulled on his jeans, ignoring the throbbing pain in his head. He needed to find his shirt, his shoes, his dignity. He rummaged through the room, finding his shirt draped over the back of a chair and his shoes abandoned by the door.
He quickly dressed, feeling a sense of urgency rising within him. He had to get out of this house before Mel woke up and found him standing there, looking like a guilty kebab-stained mess.
He tiptoed out of the room, carefully closing the door behind him. He navigated the hallway, his head pounding with every step. He found his way to the front door, relief washing over him as he grasped the handle.
He turned it slowly, wincing at the creak of the hinges. He slipped out the door, closing it quietly behind him. He was free.
He took a deep breath of fresh air, feeling the cool morning breeze against his face. He had escaped the clutches of Mel's bedroom, the scene of his kebab-fueled crime. He didn't know how he got there, he didn't know what happened, but he knew one thing: he wasn't coming back. He set off down the street, the morning sun already blazing down on the concrete jungle. The world felt too bright, too loud, too real after the hazy, alcohol-fueled dreamscape of the night before.
He winced, shielding his eyes from the glare. His head throbbed, a metronome keeping time with his unsteady steps.
The streets were starting to come alive, shopkeepers sweeping the pavements, delivery vans rumbling past, early morning joggers pounding the sidewalks with an annoyingly healthy vigor.
He felt out of place, a creature of the night caught in the harsh light of day. His mouth tasted like ashtray, his clothes reeked of stale beer and kebab, and his head felt like it was about to explode.
He trudged on, his stomach churning with a potent cocktail of shame, regret, and kebab-induced nausea. He needed a greasy fry-up, a gallon of coffee, and a time machine to rewind the clock and undo the events of the previous night.
He cursed himself, his friends, his inability to handle his booze. What had he done? What had he said? Who had he offended?
The question swirled in his mind, a vortex of anxiety sucking him deeper into the abyss of his own self-loathing. He needed to talk to Gaz, his ever-suffering mate, the only one who could make sense of his drunken escapades and offer some semblance of guidance. He spotted a familiar greasy spoon up ahead, its windows steamed up with the promise of bacon, eggs, and strong black coffee.
He quickened his pace, drawn by the siren song of a hangover cure.
He pushed open the door, the greasy aroma of fried food washing over him like a wave of comfort.
He slid into a booth, burying his face in the worn, plastic-coated menu.
Bacon, sausage, eggs, beans, toast, black pudding. He wanted it all, he needed it all, he was starving, his body crying out for sustenance after the excesses of the night before.
He ordered the full English breakfast, 2 slices of toast, and a pot of extra strong coffee.
As he waited for his food, he caught a whiff of something familiar, something that sent a shiver of disgust down his spine. Kebab.
The lingering aroma of last night's feast clung to him like a bad smell, a constant reminder of his drunken indiscretions.
He scrubbed at his hands, trying to erase the sticky residue of chili sauce and shredded lettuce. He needed a shower, a change of clothes, a new identity. He needed to disappear, to erase the events of the previous night from his memory banks. He felt like a walking health hazard, a biohazard zone of kebab debris and stale beer fumes. His food arrived, a steaming mountain of greasy goodness.
He tucked in with gusto, shoveling bacon, eggs, and sausage into his mouth with reckless abandon.
The food soothed his aching stomach, the coffee jolted his weary brain back to life.
He felt slightly more human, slightly less like a kebab-encrusted zombie.
He fished his phone out of his pocket, plugging it into the charger.
As it flickered back to life, he saw a missed call from Gaz.
He knew what that meant, the debrief.
He had to face the music, recount the events of the previous night, and endure Gaz's inevitable barrage of insults and sarcastic commentary. Gaz answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep and amusement. He dialed Gaz's number, bracing himself for the onslaught.
All right, Sid, how's the head? Find your shoes yet?
Sid groaned. Don't even start, Gaz. I feel like death warmed over. What happened last night? Fill me in.
Gaz chuckled. Oh, mate, you were a right laugh. Remember that kebab you bought? You decided to dance with it, then you tried to serenade it with a Bon Jovi song. Then you... well, let's just say you made a bit of a spectacle of yourself.
Sid listened in horror as Gaz recounted the events of the previous night, his stomach sinking with each embarrassing detail.
He had danced with a kebab, he had serenaded it with Bon Jovi, he had... oh God, what had he done?
He felt a wave of shame wash over him, hot and suffocating.
He was a walking disaster zone, a magnet for drunken mishaps and public humiliation.
Why did he do this to himself? Why couldn't he just have a quiet night out without turning into a kebab-wielding Bon Jovi singing spectacle?
He knew the answer, of course. He was Sid. It was what he did. He drank, he partied, he made a fool of himself. Rinse and repeat.
It was a cycle he couldn't seem to break, a self-destructive spiral that always ended in the same place. A greasy spoon, a pounding headache, and a phone call with Gaz, filled with equal parts amusement and judgment.
He sighed, rubbing his temples. He needed to sort his life out, get his act together, break free from the cycle of drunken chaos. But not today.
As he hung up the phone, a strange feeling washed over him.
It wasn't the usual post-Bender shame, the familiar cocktail of regret and self-loathing.
It was something else, something akin to clarity.
Was it the greasy food, the strong coffee, the sheer absurdity of dancing with a kebab?
Whatever it was, he felt a shift within him, a slight recalibration of his internal compass.
He saw his life, his choices, with a new sense of detachment, like watching a bad movie he'd seen too many times before. The same characters, the same predictable plot, the same messy ending.
It was time for a rewrite, a new script, a different ending.
He stood up, feeling a surge of determination. He would finish his coffee, pay the bill, and face the day. He would call Mel, apologize for the kebab incident, and try to salvage whatever dignity he had left. He would go to work, face his responsibilities, and resist the siren song of the pub tonight. He would try, at least.
He was Sid, after all, and old habits died hard, but maybe, just maybe, this time would be different.
Maybe this time he could break the cycle, rewrite the script, and find a new ending to his story. One that didn't involve kebabs, Bon Jovi, and public humiliation. Or at least, not all three at once.